Ladies, gentlemen, and ever in between, welcome to This is a Revolution, your weekly RevPro podcast. I'm George as always, and with me is my good friend, Mr. Dave the Mark. Dave,
hello, mate.
How are you?
Yeah, alright, mate. Alright. It's been a long slog of a week. Do you know what I mean?
I hear you, my friend. I hear you. Life is busy, and this weather outside, and I say weather outside, the actual fact it's just turning dark, which I can actually tell looking at our cameras, and I can see, I've got the big light on, but I can see the glow of you from the light as well, and yeah, that's just not helping matters either, is it? Coming into winter now. Winter is coming, as they say.
So much so. I live, I think, 9 miles from where I work.
Mm-hmm.
I work in the centre of Bedford town, and I live on the kind of Bedfordshire, Northamptonshire border in a nice, quiet, sleepy little village. It took me an hour and a half to drive that 9 miles home on Monday. And every day this week has taken me an hour to get to work. It's 9 miles.
God.
It's like that storm that we had last weekend caused some problems because some trees are down. So there's been roads closed for that. The rain we've had this week, we've got villages that are flooded, so you can't drive through them. You can't. So everyone's going the same way from kind of Northampton, Kettering, Rushden, all that traffic that goes towards Bedford that I pick up because I'm at the very, very end of it in Bedfordshire. It's just a bit of a nightmare, mate. I'm just literally crawling to Friday, I think. I've been on a school trip tonight. I got home at 7 o'clock. I had an event at school last night with 70 kids until I didn't get home from that until 6:30. And you're just I just want some RevPro at the weekend and just, a nice 229 trip. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, nice, mate. Yeah, I can completely understand that about your journey because I work 26 miles away from home, and mine usually takes me about an hour as well. So the fact that it's taking you that long for 9 miles, but I wasn't. If you caught me smiling there, it wasn't smiling at your misfortune there. It was more the fact of reeling off all the places that I used to grow up around. Born in Kettering, that was where I was born. My first foray into looking at non-league football at the time was Rushden Diamonds. Oh, yeah, love it. But here's the funny thing, right, Dave? Given where you live and where I used to live, if I still lived there, we probably wouldn't even know each other right now. Because I probably never would have found RevPro down where I am and all that sort of stuff happening. And
maybe Coventry, maybe RevPro at Coventry would have been us meeting.
Maybe
the podcast would be in person every week.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah, that would be. I'd love to do an in-person podcast.
So would I.
Get a chance to do that at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about that. Going, how can we make this happen at some point? And realistically, there's only 2 ways we can do that. That I think is either we do it when we're both in the same place together, and that either means that one of us is staying way late afterwards, and we need to find somewhere to record, or it'll be somewhere where if I stay over, I've probably got a hotel booked that night. We could do something there. That'd be cool. Or we do it on a weekend, but you know what? I'm not taking a weekend for you where it's one of your RevPro free weekends because Mrs. Marsham will probably kill me if I try that.
Mate, she would fume. Absolutely fume if I did that. But, a RevPro weekender where we, because there's bound to be a weekend where it's too far away.
I've got it, Dave.
Normally I drive home after.
Yeah.
But, if they a weekender in Manchester, say, or anywhere sort of north of there, I'd never do the journey back and forth in 2 days. I'd just have to get an hotel. In which case, I'd do a live one.
You know what we do it, don't you? Right? Because it will be cheaper to do this than it would be for me to go to Manchester and do a weekender. Just have to get tickets for the Barcelona show.
Mate, honestly, I was talking to the missus the other day because it looked pretty much like we sold my dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
We accepted an offer this week. The woman doesn't have a chain, so it should be pretty straightforward. And I've said before, he lived in a little retirement property, so it's not big money.
Yeah.
We've accepted 150 grand. But it's also like pretty much all tax free. A little bit of money goes to like the owners of the retirement property plot. A little bit goes to the estate agent, and then my brother and I split it. So decent pot of money. We should be looking at sort of like 65, maybe 70 grand each.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all I want is to be able to do a couple of RevPro like on tour trips.
Yeah.
The missus is like, she wants a new bathroom, she wants a new kitchen. She's talking about a loft conversion so that my girls share a bedroom at the moment, and how lovely would it be for them to have their own bedroom. And I'm like, yeah, babe, yeah, you can have all that, no worries. Just once a year, I'm going to fuck off to Barcelona for a weekend, watch some RevPro.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over to Berlin for a weekend. Wherever RevPro is on tour, I want to go.
Oh, man, it'd be so good. And you know what, right? So have you been to Berlin before?
When I was like 15 on a school trip.
Yeah, I went about 6 or 7 years ago. One of my favourite cities I've been to. They just so, and the food scene there is so good as well. Like,
I fucking love food, mate.
Mate, so there's this place, right, called it's when you get to Brandenburg Gate, like you go through kind of, I say go through as if it's like everyone's picture, but it's like this big square kind of area, and there's this chocolate shop called Fassbender and Rausch, right? And it is like, I think it's the biggest and oldest chocolate shop in Europe, but they have this cafe upstairs where they do these like little tort kind of desserts, and you can just buy them. Like they have a proper restaurant. We went there one time because we heard it was so good and had one. We're like, yes, this place is the one. So our goal for the 4 nights we were there was to go there every day, right? And just have a dessert, because why not? We realised that as we were planning it one night that we were going to go to this really nice steak place for dinner. But by the time we'd finished there, Fassbender and Rausch would be closed. So we decided to go for dessert first. But because we were so hungry, we ended up having 2 desserts. And then we just went somewhere else. I think we just grabbed a burger somewhere else for dinner. But then you've got this steak place, which if you like your steaks, this was a great place. Like, it was almost like a family-run restaurant, it felt like. And their gimmick was whatever you got, they served it with a baked potato on the side. Because their idea was, bear with me here when I say this, their idea was the baked potato was the healthy part of the meal. And that was the idea. You get the healthy part of the meal to go along with the steak. And it was incredible food. Incredible.
Mate, I love steak so much that I reckon you could literally put anything on the side of it. I don't care, as long as I've got my steak.
Mate, I did. I got I had this baked potato, because I'm not a massive baked potato fan, right? They're okay. You get people who love them. I'm just like, yeah, they're fine. They're a baked potato. What more do you want from it? And I got some sides. I got these garlic mushrooms. I got dauphinoise potato, and had all of that, right? And my wife was like, "You're not going to finish all of that." Whenever she says that to me, I'm like, "Yeah, do you want me to fucking prove you wrong?" Yeah, off I go. Yeah, and I finished the whole thing. But my favorite thing about Berlin, so. When it comes to films, I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan, right? Favorite director, filmmaker of all time. And my favorite film of all time is Inglourious Basterds. So, have you seen the film? Are you aware? Do you know it?
I have, and you know what? It's on my list of films to watch again with the missus, because we're kind of going through like the classics.
Yeah, so it's really funny because I generally don't like war films. That's just not my bag at all. Anything set in the war, for me. But this film is my favourite film of all time. So when we were out there, I found out that there's the scene which, if you know the film well, the main female protagonist in the film, she gets taken by Hans Lander to go for dinner. Or no, she gets taken to go for dinner, but Hans Lander is at this really lovely restaurant, and she gets the strudel, and he does the famous "wait for the cream" line. Well, I found out that exact restaurant is actually a real restaurant in Berlin. And I was like, we are going there. So we trekked about 6 miles across Berlin. It took because I don't like getting public transport if I can help it. I like walking these places. It took us about 2.5 hours to get there. And we sat and we looked at the menu, and they had the strudel on there. And you could have it with ice cream or cream. So we did the whole meta thing of me looking at the strudel, and then my wife was like, "Wait for the cream," and then at the end of it, I was a bit of a bad boy here, Dave. I was like, I'm just going to sneak up these stairs and see what's up there, right? Because there was an area up there, and you go up and you see. So when you're watching the film, you see you getting walked through the restaurant, and it looks like they come into like this end room. And what that is the restaurant downstairs, and then the end room is actually a room upstairs. But it's next to this bar, and on the bar, you can't go into the bar now. It's locked, and there's this big mirror behind it, and in like. It looks like lipstick. It just says "Thank you for everything," and it's got Quentin written across it. It was so cool. Yeah, that was just my favourite little thing about Berlin. So yeah,
Class, love that.
that's how we do it, mate. Right? We just because look for me to get to Manchester, I think a train costs me now about £170 from where I live. It'd be cheaper for me to get a train to London and then to get a flight out into Europe. It'd be the same amount of price for a hotel for the night. Yeah, let's do that in person. That's how we do it. In person podcast from Barcelona.
2025 goal.
Absolutely, mate. And we'll try not to in Barcelona get sprayed with people with water pistols for being a tourist. Right, so Dave, this week, like you said, we've got RevPro this weekend, and we normally like to do a bit of a preview show, but Mr. Quilden doesn't like giving us the matches by the time we come around. Who can blame him normally?
I thought we might have when the cards started coming out yesterday. So for context, it's Thursday night here. Yesterday, Wednesday morning, we got the Anita Vaughan Millie McKenzie match graphic, and then very quickly after, it was the Michael Oakley on Cage one.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, maybe he's literally just gonna quick fire smash the card out. That didn't happen. So I thought maybe it's going to be like 2 Wednesday morning, 2 Wednesday evening, 2 Thursday morning, 2 Thursday evening. Or maybe couple Wednesday morning, couple Thursday morning, couple before the Q&A on Friday, and a couple after it. But no, just 2 matches so far.
Yeah. I'm convinced Andy Quilden knows.
Some people get irked by it because I get it. You, especially if you're someone that goes to loads of different shows, you want to know, you're trying to pick, do I go and watch RevPro or do I go and watch another company that's running somewhere else? Or if you're someone who's just, I don't know, you just like having all your ducks in a line and you like to know exactly what you're getting and you like to be organised, I get that. But I also quite enjoy, because I know I'm going, right? I bought my ticket. I'm buying my ticket regardless of what the card is because I know it's going to be a good card because they've never not delivered a good card. So then it's a case of like, I just like the little dopamine hits, but I really enjoy them when I don't know I'm getting them.
Yeah.
I love it when I'm teaching a lesson at school. My phone's just sitting there. Like, obviously, I'm not on my phone whilst I'm working. And then like the kids will leave my classroom and I've got like 10 minutes. I've got a 10-minute break where I need to kind of check my emails and go to the toilet, fill up my water bottle, and then get the books out for the next lesson. And you just have a quick look at your phone, like, ooh, there's a little X in the corner. There's a Twitter notification. And obviously, I've got RevPro's Twitter notifications on notification. So you flick down, and you're like, ooh, Leon Cage versus Michael Oku. Have a bit of that. So yeah, I'm excited for a card frenzy tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just convinced Andy Quilden knows when we're recording because no matter how we try doing this, right, it never works out. We always go. It's normally Tuesday we record, and obviously that's got to a stage where it was too early in the week. We're doing one later in the week. Andy Quilden, he just knows. But I thought I'd do something different this week with you, Dave. Right, so we were kind of chatting back and forth, going, "What could we do?" Like, it's a down week, as I like to call it. There's nothing new happening. I know we did a little bit of a tease last week that we might have someone on this week. Schedules haven't quite lined up yet either to make that work. So I thought, let's just do a question show, but not even a question show in the way that we do it normally. I've come up with a few different questions for you to get thinking on, and as you know, I haven't told you what these questions are beforehand, haven't even hinted at what they are. And I just thought, let's just talk about some things because knowing us, one of two things will happen. We'll get through these questions in a nice amount of time, or our brains will start going into overdrive and going, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? So I haven't done 10 questions. I've actually got 4 questions. But I thought, no, like I said, knowing us. But to start with, before we even get into that, someone raised a question with RevPro last week about year-end awards, and I think it was I think it might have been Adam, that friend of the show, Adam, who tagged us in saying we might get involved in something like that as well, and he was right, but I just forgot it was so late in November already. So we we have spoken about this right from the beginning of our show, like when episode 1 came out, that we're like, what do we want to do at the end of the year? And I think we're definitely going to do some form of awards show. What would be really great, I think, as well, as if we could maybe get some involvement from some people outside of the pod. So I know there's some people who love giving their opinions on things. So I'll put some stuff out on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and Instagram, and we'll see who's up for sharing some thoughts and all of that jazz, and get involved in that. I'd really like to make it as an interactive thing as possible, and we can kind of get an interest into what our end of year awards will be, but what other people are feeling for certain things as well. But off the top of my head, Dave and I have not discussed what the actual awards will be. We've maybe at points during the year we've talked about things informally, but probably like some singles wrestler of the year, women's wrestler of the year, match of the year we'll do as a separate thing, because we've already said that we've done our first half of the year, what the matches are. So now we've got to come up with our second half of the year, plus what our overall match of the year looks like there. And not as runaway as I thought it might have been at the beginning of the year. There's some challenges in there. I still don't know if it will change, but there's definitely some challenges in there for me as well. But yeah, I think coming towards the end of the year, it'll be a good chance for us to take stock and discuss the year that was and give out a few little awards.
Sounds great to me, mate. We've got quite a busy couple of weeks, haven't we? After this little quiet week, we're going to have 229 to review, and then before you know it, we'll have Southampton to review, and then we'll have Sheffield to review, and then we'll have Uprising to review, and then we get this nice quiet period. So as far as I'm like looking at schedules from December 21st until possibly the start of February, we're going to have an absence of RevPro shows, which feels crazy. I'm sure it will drag along slowly / fly by for others, but loads of opportunities there to do some cool stuff. Look at some forecasting for 2025. Look at a retrospective on 2024. I don't think any match that can rival Osprey versus Oku 3 is, that's kind of like the one where it's going to be really, really kind of difficult to rival. But I do think there is stuff that is worthy of the discussion.
Absolutely.
I think in terms of like that breakout star of the year, I think basically everyone's going to say the same person. But if you take those two out of contention and you look at all the other types of award, I think everything's wide open. If you were looking at like, male MVP, female MVP, tag MVP, like moment of the year and stuff like that, there's so many that can be discussed and considered, because it's nuts to think of, for an independent wrestling company to have so much stuff happen in one year. But then you forget that this isn't a company that runs 12 shows a year. They've run 43 shows, I think, this year. I think it is something around that number. Like, you're talking about like an episodic weekly television company.
Absolutely,
talking about like an Impact Wrestling in terms of how many shows there have been, which is absolutely nuts from a British company, and I love every second of it. Yes, that sounds cracking to me, man. Can't wait.
What's interesting there as well, and I don't know if it's just because it's been a busy day at work, but when you said everyone's going to know who the breakout star of the year is going to be, I'm like, who's he thinking of here? Like, genuinely. But I think that's partly down to just the fact that I had a busy old day, but the fact as well that like there are people that you could generally make these cases for very different ways as well. So I'm really looking forward to chatting about this and just getting some stuff out there. But right, I said to you 4 questions I've got for you. Right, so we've just spoken there about the packed schedule that we've got coming up, Dave, ending this year in Uprising. So Andy Quilden has confirmed via RevPro Q&As that there is going to be no shows after Uprising. Makes sense. They normally do the Priory Centre shows, but from what I understand, that's being refurbed at the minute. So there is kind of nowhere else that they would go within that time frame. And January, due to no availability at the 229, is nothing's happening then. So we're going to have Uprising, which is going to be like almost like a season ender. So expecting a big show there. Now, I'm just going to say that I was completely wrong with the whole Mina Shirakawa situation. I worked myself into it with travel, and that match has been announced as well. So we've got some good matches there already. But outside of those, what 3 matches do you think will be added to the card for Uprising? Or what 3 matches would you like to see added?
Okay, so the first one is me plagiarising my own self from last week. I want Jay Joshua and Connor Mills versus the winner of Sunshine Machine versus Barcelona Blacklist. So I want the latter match to happen in Sheffield. The former to happen at Cool. So Sunshine Machine and Blacklist in Sheffield, playing upon the fact that Joey Torres and Cito Sanchez got the pinfall victory over TK Cooper in the trios tournament. Therefore, they had the pinfall victory over Sunshine Machine, so therefore they should get the first shot at them. Whereas Mills and Joshua just want the belts so they can get whoever the champion is at Uprising. So that's that taken care of. Let me just, like you say, you haven't prepared me for these at all. So let me just talk my way through my thinking. We've got Leon versus Isaiah. We've got Oku and Jacobs. We've got Danny and Mina. I'm not going to do the easy one because Caven versus Leo Rush is surely just a match graphic waiting to drop.
I would say so.
We can kind of expect that, but I won't take that because that's an easy out. And I've already taken one kind of easy out by talking about a match that I've already manifested. So we've got 3 confirmed. I'm saying Sunshine Machine, Jay Joshua, Connor Mills. We think we're going to get Caven versus Leo Rush, which leaves space for 3 more matches. So, okay, let's see if I can complete the card. Help me out. Who has to be on that card that isn't? Robbie X has to be on that card.
Yeah, Robbie has to be there for certain.
RKJ has to be on that card.
So this was, I'm going to say this before we get into that kind of. I'm not necessarily. I'm sure he will be there, but I don't think he'll be in a match. And yeah, my reasoning for that was the last time we saw him, he said he was going home.
Yeah. Okay. And we did not see him at the Trios Grand Prix.
We did not see him there, and we've spoken about this beforehand, right? Before kind of the stuff that happened. We said actually a situation where Ricky just disappears for a bit and comes back and makes an impact. I think Ricky turns up at some point during or after the main event. But I think the show ends with.
I'd absolutely love it if we don't. This always sounds horrible. I'd love it if we don't see Ricky between now and Uprising.
Yeah.
And just, I love Ricky Knight Jr. Love watching his work. Always have fun. But a comeback and a shock and a return is always great in wrestling, right?
Yeah.
So I love the idea of him turning up at Uprising and destroying both Oku and Jacobs at the end of their match. And just he's basically laying claim there, being like, yep, this was meant to be me.
Yeah.
Hasn't been me, but now I'm making it about me.
I think something like that could happen.
Full on, out and out. Like, I'm so ready for that.
Yeah. In terms of who has to be there. So in terms of who has to be there, for me, I think you have to have some some permutation of the Cutthroat Collective, be that someone in a singles match, a tag team match, a trio, however you want to do that, and some permutation of Millie McKenzie, Kanji, and Chantel Jordan. I think something around that has to happen.
I want Medusa Complex. I want Medusa Complex versus Cutthroat Collective. But what I quite like, I don't think that some people might say you can't have another 5-on-5 match after the anniversary show. But I think you can if you make it a very different 5-on-5 match. You make it so it isn't a no disqualification chaotic match. You can still have a really entertaining 5-on-5. I'd love to see Cutthroat Collective, Medusa Complex, Kanji, Chantel Jordan, and a fifth. And it can either be a reward for someone who is putting in shifts, someone like an Anita Vaughan, or it could be a way back in for someone like a Rio, who we haven't seen for a little while. Or it could be a cool surprise where it is, like we had Giselle Shaw at the anniversary show. Yeah. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like a mystery person, but if we had been speculating who the who the Team RevPro was going to be, because we kind of knew we were getting Cutthroat Collective versus Team RevPro before that.
Course, yeah.
Nobody would have said Debbie Keitel until the Coventry show when Debbie Keitel wrestled Kanji. And because we don't know the 229 card yet, we don't know the Southampton card, we don't know the Sheffield card, any Brit Rest female could come in and take a fifth spot. So either a top quality person like that, or a return like a Debbie Keitel, like a Rio, or a reward for someone putting the shifts in. But the key for me is I want Medusa Complex. I want it so much. For me, they're like it's a bit of a weird thing to say, but they're like a bit of like a white whale of Brit Rest for me. Because when I first discovered Brit Rest, I'm going to go on a bit of tangent here. I discovered Brit Rest because I read. There's the book behind me. I read that. So my wife bought me this book for Christmas, maybe 2019. 2019, she bought me that. And I read it and really enjoyed it. And at the end of the book, I read the little bit about Jim Smallman and was like, oh, this bloke runs a wrestling company. Didn't know that. It's in London, looked it up, Progress Wrestling, and was like, oh, didn't even know wrestling existed in England. That's how much of a fake-pilled kind of lived in the American wrestling fan I was. So AEW was new at the time, and I was discovering, like everything. I was watching NWA Power. I was going back and watching Lucha Underground. That's when I first started watching Lucha Power and stuff like that. It basically came from that book. And when I first started looking at like progress online, these Medusa Complex little videos were so captivating. I remember one, they're walking down the like train tracks, like drinking bottles and throwing bottles over their shoulders. Charlie Evans is cutting these like ridiculously good promos. And I was like, wow, this is so different to what I watch on like American TV shows, like American wrestling shows. And at that point, I was like, wow, I really want to see them. And 5 years later, I still haven't seen them. I've seen Charlie Evans. I've seen Millie McKenzie. I've never seen them together. Okay. So for me, I'm desperate for that. Robbie X is a really interesting one, right? Because for the first time since I've been a RevPro fan, I can now think about who do I want to see Robbie fight where Robbie's the heel?
Yeah.
Who do I want to see? I'll tell you a match I'd absolutely like. I mean, let's go wild. A match I would absolutely love to see, but I haven't seen yet. Robbie X versus Speedball Mike Bailey.
Oh, don't say that, Dave. Because
that is a match. Like that is literally like makes me feel stuff inside. Like the excitement that you can feel the minute I say that. At the same time, I would also really like to see Robbie X versus Cameron Kai again.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen it 3 times already. I'm pretty sure that's right. I think Robbie's beaten Cameron twice. Both times in the 229, but Cameron beat Robbie in Sheffield. You can check that for me, mate. If you've
I'm literally doing that now.
I hope he is. I think that's right. I know Robbie definitely beat Cameron in the 229 because it was the first time I'd seen him win with the running corner kick.
Yeah. Okay. So
Cameron beat Robbie in Sheffield in what was like a match of the night contender for a really underrated Sheffield show.
Yeah, they have had 9 matches. They've crossed over in 9 matches in total, but there's some Revolution Rumbles in there, Revolution Tag matches. So let's just have a look. Right, so the first singles match, March last year, Robbie X defeats Cameron Kai, Sheffield. Then we've got... So then they tagged together at the 229 a couple of months later against losing to Connor Mills and Harrison Bennett. 3-way match in Coventry this March. God, that feels like ages ago, and it was only March this year. And then Robbie X defeats Cameron Kai, 7th of April, live in London, 84. And then in June, Cameron Kai defeats Robbie X in Sheffield.
Yeah. Let's be the speculation and the wild wishful thinking. I'd love to see Robbie versus Speed.
Yeah.
If that is not a possibility, and we're going to think within a more kind of RevPro built story, I like the idea of Cameron getting another go at Robbie. This being a very different match because Robbie gets to be the veteran bully. And we've not seen him play that role in a match, but Cameron Kai would be a great foil for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really like that idea. I want to see Cameron Kai in a York Hall singles match. Have we had that? Have we had Cam in a singles match at York Hall?
I don't think so. I can't check Cage Match because he doesn't have a profile, so it wouldn't let me. But I don't think
we have because he didn't have a singles match at Summer Sizzler. He didn't have a singles match at Revolution Rumble. He wasn't on the Fantastic Mania card. So they're all the York Halls this year. And he definitely went on a York Hall last year, not in a singles match. So I think that would be really big for him. I know he's wrestled at the Copper Box and he's wrestled at Crystal Palace, but York Hall's sacred. York Hall is like it's a big moment, and wrestlers talk about it. I remember when I interviewed Josh James. And even when we've talked to people, I remember when we talked to Manders, York Hall is seen as it's the place where anyone who's seen any RevPro match, anyone outside of RevPro that's in a RevPro match, they saw it at York Hall.
Yeah.
When people talk about Zack Sabre Jr. Matches, Kurt Angle, the Rey Mysterio match, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, these people that have come into RevPro, they all wrestled York Hall.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What's really interesting about what you've just... I was going to say, with the ones you just mentioned there, Speedball is actually my white whale as well. So every time that he's been announced for something, I had other things going on. So I've got 2 white whales as far as in the Brit Rest scene, like imports coming over. It was Mike Bailey and the Young Bucks / Kenny. And famously, what you just mentioned there about the Elite at York Hall, Epic Encounter 2017, I was saving for my wedding at the time and my honeymoon, so I couldn't justify that.
Was that Leo, Shane Strickland, and Ryan Smart?
Yes, your brain is ridiculous. Right, so I'm going to peel back the curtain here.
It's not a gimmick. I'm a massive RevPro mark.
Oh, no, I know.
I've got the 88. I've got the ADHD brain that's like a superpower as opposed to a limitation, where it helps me remember shit.
Yeah, man, I was gonna say. I mean, I know, like from chatting with you about ADHD, and certainly I seem to have some tendency of it. Mine is not got the good part kind. Mine is just the limitation side. But I remember when I first started this
I
podcast,
have
right?
limitations too. I have them too. I'm so fucking impulsive. It's
Oh,
unbelievable.
so yeah,
But I do get the good memory.
I'm the same, my friend. Last year, buying all those tickets because I'm liking wrestling right now. But no, when I was saving for the wedding, and it seemed to be every time I was saving for something, they would come over, right? And it was another one. Kenny Omega was appearing for this random little promotion in Swindon, right? And at the time, I was like, I'm not sure if I like Kenny Omega enough, right? Because I hadn't seen enough of his stuff. I knew that I liked Kenny Omega. I was trying to justify why I wasn't driving to Swindon for it because again, the cost involved. I was like, I'm so gutted to have missed that. But Mike Bailey's the other one, and I thought I was going to have my chance with 1PW because when I went to the show, the last show I went to, they did this graphic where it said they're getting Mike Bailey. I was like, I'm going to go to that. And then you started seeing the writing on the wall very quickly. It's like, I'm not going to that. I'm not putting money down for that one. So yeah, Mike Bailey would be another one. And because I've said I'm not coming to this show, that is the only reason I'm saying no, please no, because I would be gutted to miss it.
Like, cruelly funny if it happens. Funny enough, like Speedball, I had seen some Speedball matches before I saw him live, and I'll be honest, I didn't really get the fuss about him. And I think it was because I found the character to be quite difficult to kind of like gravitate to through the TV camera. And then you watch someone live on TV and they're really impressive and they're really good. And that's cool, right? But like, it's harder to appreciate how good somebody is through the TV because everybody looks good on TV. When you see them up close, when you see just how fast they're moving, when you see just how hard they're hitting and bouncing off the ropes and stuff, that's when I feel like you can really appreciate somebody. When you can literally see their footwork and you can see all the little details that they're doing that isn't picked up by the camera. And my first two Speedball matches were the 10th anniversary weekend, where he wrestled Leon Slater on Saturday and Will Ospreay on Sunday. Or no, the other way around. Ospreay on Saturday, Leon on Sunday. And you're just like, I think both matches were 4 3/4 stars off Meltzer.
Mate,
maybe Leon was 4.5, but also everybody was like, "Oh, that was harsh," because the Speedball Ospreay match felt like it was fine. Like it felt like it felt like a proper. And from that moment on, I was like, I just want to watch this man as much as possible. Like, he's so good.
So good and seems so likable as well. Like, that's what I like about him. He's got this personality that I just gravitate towards. I started watching him properly of all things on GCW. So I can't say GCW is one of those things I watch a lot of. It's a promotion that's very much not me in the majority of its makeup, but it's got some moments there where when I pay my £3.50 a month for Fight TV Plus, I get enough out of the amount of shows that they do, which is probably why like I don't at this stage I don't think I was going to go to the January show for GCW at the Ballroom, but Manders and Maki Ito being announced for that is testing my patience there on that, but he was one of those ones. As soon as I saw he was on the show, I was like, I'm watching it. My baby's on there. Like that was a genuine draw for me there. So yeah, mate. You know what? Even if I'm not going to make the show, I mean, to be fair, I did say that if something happened where I felt like I had to go, then I probably would. And I think that might be the one that gets me hopefully buying a balcony ticket if they're still available and just trying to go. And it's funny because I made some plans like the week of that. And I was like, I'm not doing anything after the Friday, but that would be the one thing that I will add on to there. But yeah,
nice, I like that, mate. So you asked for free. I've given you free because I've given you.
Yeah, you have.
My fourth is kind of it's on the cards, right? Charlie Sterling versus JJ Gowan.
Yeah, has to be. Yeah,
that feels like that's happening. Whether it's I feel like that's the sort of match which it's going to have, like, those boys are going to have to really put something unique together for it to stand out in your call.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Whereas, like, if it was like a big featured event in Sheffield or Southampton, like that, it could be the main event. If they sell it as one. But what I do think would work really well, and what I think ties in really nicely with the story and what the rest of the card looks like it's going to be at Uprising, is they could stipulation it up. They could make it no disqualification, and that would be like a fun thing. Never seen a no disqualification match with JJ Gowan in it, so that'd be cool. I always think it's interesting when you see somebody in that atmosphere, that environment that you've not seen before. So let's see their creativity when it comes to that side of wrestling, because there's stipulation matches which are like absolutely iconic, and then there are stipulation matches that you barely remember.
Yeah,
because just because you've made it a stipulation match doesn't make it an exciting one or a good one.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You've got to be able to put a good match together with the bells and whistles that go with it. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, that's not just like what I'd like, it's what I can see happening. All of those things feel like they're being teased. Robbie versus Speedball's obviously a bit of a wild card.
But still in the realms of possibility. You're not suggesting anything outlandish there.
And if not, Robbie versus Cameron, I think works really, really well. And it gives him that big moment. I would be talking about like a Josh James match if he wasn't injured.
Yeah, same. And
talking about something involving Shah and Josh.
Yeah.
But obviously, sadly, it doesn't look like we're going to see Josh again this year.
No.
And we'll give him an absolute hero's welcome when he returns in 2025.
Of course he will. I was really hoping that was going to lead to a match for those boys at your call, but not to be for this year. But
not yet.
No, not yet, but definitely coming. Now, Dave, I obviously mentioned there a minute ago, I mentioned GCW, and I'm not sure if you kind of look at some of the happenings in the wider wrestling world over the weekend, and as quickly as it was announced, it was then taken away. But Ricky Starks turned up at GCW and cut a couple of promos. They were teasing some matches. Ricky Starks is available on the Indies, and some things were said, and he was pulled from GCW. But what was really interesting to me was Tony Khan says he is available for the Indies. We've certainly seen that RevPro and AEW have got a working relationship, and we've seen Orange Cassidy as champion, MJF as champion, competing in the RevPro ring in big featured matches. So my question to you is, if Ricky Starks was to appear in RevPro, and let's say we're get a small kind of a one show, maybe a lead up plus big show kind of arc out of him. So kind of like the Oku MJF, where they don't necessarily need to be on shows a lot to build something up. Who would you put him against?
Oh, mate, I love that. I was literally listening to the Chris Van Vliet and Ricky Starks interview yesterday on my drive to work. I'm a big Ricky Starks fan. Have been ever since NWA Power days. Like, you could just see he had something. He was like an unpolished diamond on Power. Something that I really like about Ricky and the way he wrestles is that his style is so classic. Like, he's not strong style. He's not high flying. He's not like deeply into a character. He's just an all-rounder. And that can be used as a praise for people. But I mean it in literally the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like, his matches. So Jay White is one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. Like, genuinely top 5 wrestlers in the world, Jay White, for me. Ricky Starks and Jay White have got a similar style in the sense that they don't really have a style.
Yeah.
They're just great all-round wrestlers. Maybe Jay is... I always describe Jay White, and I'm not claiming it. I've definitely plagiarized it off of somebody that knows more about it than I do, as being like one of the best defensive wrestlers in the world in his counter work. And maybe that's Jay's style.
Which, you know what, if you watch the latest AEW pay-per-view as well, his match with Hangman Page, that's exactly like the style, like the thrilling end to that match. Again, featured that defensive counter SAR.
Absolutely, like unbelievable. Ricky, what I would really love, I would love to see Ricky Starks in RevPro, and listening to him on the interview where he was talking about, you know, he's fit and he's healthy, but he's not getting the AEW call, so maybe he needs to go and, you know, he's open to offers. He's open to bookings. And I'm sitting there thinking, Andy, please tell me you're listening to this. For me, who I want to see him face depends on whether he's working face or heel. So the first one is my favorite iteration. Oh, is it? To say my favorite version of Ricky Starks is when he's working heel, and then I suddenly was like, oh, I love underdog babyface Ricky Starks. I think if he was coming into RevPro, he'd be coming in as heel. In which case, I'd want Ricky Starks versus JJ Gale. I feel like the styles would work really well together. I feel like Ricky can be the dominant heel. I mean, you know, Ricky is deceptively big. He's a tall guy, but he's not the bulkiest of guys.
Yeah.
But him and JJ, I think, would physically work really well together. I feel like they could put together a match which would be really, really enthralling, and something that would really grip you. I think that Ricky's got that kind of wrestling intelligence where his matches are always deliver, but they're not spots. You don't look back on the match and be like, oh, I really liked that spot. I really liked how they did this. I really liked how they did that. All you can say is that was a really good match. I enjoyed the whole thing. Like his run when he was on Collision, during the CM Punk, FTR, Ricky Starks Collision, that was my favorite show of the week.
Oh, same. I don't get these
so much more than Dynamite at that time.
I don't get these people right. And I know there's a CM Punk, anti-CM Punk bias now, right? And look, as a fan of CM Punk right from when he started, right through to now, yes, it's conflicting the way his attitude seemed to come out at the end and how it all went down. All shit, right? Because it could have been so good there. But that run of Collision, all I wanted was a little bit more in terms of more featured people. But you had that whole Ricky Starks thing where he felt like he was really built. Like you had him in the stuff with Ricky Steamboat as well, and it just made him feel bigger. The FTR versus Bullet Club Gold match, honestly, that was a 2 out of 3 falls match. I think it was, wasn't it? 47 minutes or something. And now I've said to you,
nearly an hour long.
When it comes to lengthy matches, you need to really find a way to hook me in. I didn't feel like that went on anywhere near as long as it did. Incredible match, one of my favourite tag matches of all time. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you there on what they were building on that show.
Yeah, and that for me, that Ricky Starks that went toe-to-toe with MJF on the mic, that's the Ricky Starks that I'd want to come into RevPro. And I'd really quite like him to be the cocky, arrogant American. I've said it before, I wasn't a huge fan of the MJF Michael Oku match.
That's fair.
And maybe I'm very, very acutely aware that maybe that's because I had a slight bias against it because I wasn't there live. and I was very begrudgingly not there live because I went on holiday by mistake, with now an icon. I ended up on holiday at the wrong time and didn't really want to be there. Don't tell the wife and kids. But yeah, maybe that influenced it. But for me, the whole MJF heel American Hogan shtick, and I'm not a big fan of like overacting and overselling, and MJF does it quite a lot. And I think it seems to really, really work for TV, and it seems to really work for the American audience because they absolutely love him. And please don't get me wrong, like I love so much about MJF, but for me, it took me a little bit out of that match, the O2 match. It's not one that I think I'll probably be in a rush to go back and watch. But I know that the people that were there raved about how much they enjoyed it. So absolutely, like fair play to them with that. So put that to one side. I do like the idea of Ricky Starks coming in being the arrogant American on the British independent show. And I think Ricky would do it better than MJF did it, because I think Ricky would do it in a slightly more subtle, less on the nose way. I think that Ricky, in the ring, Ricky and JJ would deliver a match that I would really, really enjoy and would get all of the elements of it right. That's the one for me, mate. That's my match.
Nice. I was thinking about this, like, because this wasn't one of my questions actually that I originally have written down. This was just one as we were talking about independent wrestling stuff. I was like, oh yeah, this happened. So this is what I mean about us going off on tangents, and by us I mean me. My one, and it's not even such about the match because I know the match will be great. It's the promos that they can do, because let's be honest, to set this up, it would be promo video, right? And you could do multiple promo video answering each other's videos. For me on that one, the one that feels like they would hold up the most against him would be Ricky Knight Jr. I think they'd have a stellar match with each other, but I think the promos you could do, like the match itself, almost by that point, it sounds really weird to say in a company that I love because it's so much about the in-ring, but that's by the by. Like, you could do all that setup so that he is there. The question is, does Ricky Starks get you to cheer him or boo him? Like, because he has that in him, doesn't he? And so that'd be an interesting dynamic to see. But yeah, I'd love to see him.
It kind of says something that, like, is RevPro missing a top level heel? Is that a gap in the roster? Because if you were saying, okay, we want Ricky Starks coming in working babyface, so put him against our biggest heel. Who's the biggest heel in RevPro? Will Caven? Like, is he the biggest heel? I think he probably is. Like, biggest male heel. I mean, Cutthroat Collective, obviously. But
I would say for me, it's him or Connor Mills. Like, they're the top two in terms of presented heel and how they act. Definitely.
Yeah. I think where they played with the Destination Everywhere, getting back together, and I've said it before, I very much feel like we were meant to get Destination Everywhere versus Young Guns in Southampton prior to the anniversary show. That was the kind of strange show where Will Caven was booked against Eric Dillinger.
Yeah.
And Eric Dillinger is a heel everywhere he works in America, and Will Caven's a heel. And we had this kind of strange dynamic. And if you trace it back, like, Mills got injured the few days before, was pulled out of the show, and then it's announced that it's going to be Oku and Zazaya versus Young Guns, and it's like, maybe I'm putting two and two together and making five, but it felt to me like Zazaya was meant to wrestle Eric Dillinger. Dillinger had been booked as part of his tour of the UK. He was going to wrestle Zazaya. Young Guns were going to wrestle Destination Everywhere to pay off all the Destination Everywhere kind of feedback. And, at the anniversary show, you've got Ethan versus Mills and you've got Jacobs versus Oaken.
Yeah.
And then Mills gets rattled, so he's not cleared for the match after Summer Sizzler. So then you've got Zazaya promoted to the main event with Oku, and someone needs to wrestle Dillinger. Caven's going to be there anyway. Get Caven involved. Slightly strange dynamics. It's heel versus heel. But, it is what it is. Dillinger kind of works a bit of a tweener role, and Caven kind of works a bit of a tweener role, and that's the show where I actually got to cheer him and it not be weird. But because of all of that, it feels like Mills has lost a little bit of his heat.
Yeah, I can.
And maybe this is the perfect chance for him to get all his heat back. Him and Jay Joshua and Sunshine Machine, because Sunshine Machine are like the perfect baby faces. Like you can't not. I mean, well, somehow you don't love them, but like you can't not love Sunshine Machine, right? Like they're just lovable people. And then Mills and Joshua can be absolute bastards with them. So if you wanted Ricky Starks to come in as babyface, him versus Connor Mills sounds beautiful. Excuse me.
Bless you. So now talking about taking a bit of a sidestep to all of that, Dave. So we obviously had the Trio Grand Prix, and the stipulation was that whoever wins, they get to pick matches. What matches do you think the Trio CPF go for? Do you think that they
right? Because they get 3 matches.
Yes. Well, so here's the thing that I was wondering, and I don't know, right? So does their win get them a match each, or to get so? So I guess what I'm getting at is, does Danny Black get to go, I want this tag match with Joe Lando against Sunshine Machine? They lose, and then Joe Lando go, I want this tag team match with Danny Black, or do they both give up because they're both in the match? But that's the bit I'm.
And I chatted with some RevPro officials at the Trios Grand Prix.
So I've just got this image of you with Ref Harv over at the side. So Harv.
It wasn't Andy Quilden and it wasn't Ref Harv. But I do love that idea. And I'm pretty sure actually it's in Coventry that I got my photo with Ref Harv. I want a photo, I'm going to put it out there now. I want a photo with Chris Hatch. I want a photo with Sarah Hatch. I want a photo with Oscar Harding. These are people that are unsung heroes that you never get a chance to get photos with. But I do have one with Harv.
You mean that I've actually got a photo with some RevPro people that you haven't, that you want a photo of? Oh, mate.
So from what I understand is the trophy itself is almost like I hate saying this. The Money in the Bank briefcase is you hand in the briefcase, you get your title shot.
Yeah.
This is they get to keep the trophy, but each trophy represents a match.
Yeah.
So Danny can say, I'm cashing in my match. It's going to be me and Lando versus Sunshine Machine. That doesn't affect Lando's match. He can do whatever he wants.
Got you.
I like simplicity, right? And this is not the simplest reward for winning. The simplest reward for winning is they get a match. The fact that they get 3 matches is kind of quite unique, which I'm absolutely cool for. I feel like it needs to be done well. Because if it's done well, then they can build on it for future. So, CPF win. What do they each want? I like the idea of Maverick Mayhew calling out Connor Mills and then tying it to the fact that Mills really embarrassed him at the 229. You know, like it was quite scathing, talking about like, do you even want to be a professional wrestler? You know. Well, actually, Mills, yes, he fucking does because he's just gone out and won the previous tournament. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's answering him back. Now I'd like him to have this like really spirited match, and it'd be like a nice high, something they can put. Like when they do at the 229, especially, and I think they've definitely done it in Southampton as well. But they'll just put like a little 90-second video together before the match for anyone who wasn't there to tell them the story.
Yeah.
I'd love that, and it'd be a really kind of put it on fourth before the interval.
Mm-hmm.
If we're saying maybe it's not a big enough match to headline a show, maybe it is. Like, I'm not being funny, but at the start of the year, nobody would have said Charles Samuels versus David Francisco with main event Southampton. And I know it didn't, but I think everybody believes it should have.
Also, and I mean this with respect as well, if CPF versus the Bryants can main event the show, why can't this main event the show?
And it fucking main evented that show.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah.
Jordan Saeed versus Ethan Allen main evented the 229. I know that wasn't the plan. That's when Danny Luna wasn't able to make the show, and I'm assuming her and Rio was going to headline.
Yeah.
But these guys are so good that they can put on a main event delivery.
Yeah.
And if they can't, if there's something that is more that you want to put on in the main event, then put this on in the fourth spot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we've often spoke about how that is like probably the second biggest spot on the show that they've done, right? They used to do it all the time with Luke Jacobs. Like that was the match that he would go on. Like you want that big match.
Jacobs' spot. Right?
Yeah.
Like that was, in my eyes, the number of shows that Robbie X opened, Luke Jacobs hit fourth, and Michael Oku closed.
Yeah.
And that was almost like it was like a little RevPro formula that worked beautifully.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they've ripped it up a little bit and they've changed the format around and it's a bit more unpredictable. But on a lot of shows, that works. Robbie opens, gets the crowd up. Luke gives them a banger before the interval. Oku sends everybody home.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, Mav versus Mills.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to want a tag title shot. So I like the idea, and I think both the boys can do it brilliantly well. I quite like the idea of them putting together a little. Have you seen Joe Lando's vlog?
No, I haven't. I've seen it come up, but I haven't watched it yet.
The boys do these like really nice little vlogs together, right? I quite like the idea of them putting a vlog together that is specifically for this angle, and it being a thing of them, like. I mean, maybe they can do it more inventive than what I'm about to suggest, but like a coin toss, right? You win the coin toss, you get a cruiserweight title shot, and the other person calls for the tag titles. And it'd be, or like rock, paper, scissors, or whatever, a drinking game in the pub after a show, whatever,
Yeah.
If either way, they're getting a tag title shot, but one of them is getting a cruiserweight shot.
I like that.
And if they make something that's canon, so it's not just something they do on the internet that the diehards see, they put it on for everybody to see in the building, and then you get these matches. I feel like it's the best kind of set of 3 matches from what is quite a convoluted stipulation of winning a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
The J Cup, you win the tournament, you get the big trophy, get cruiserweight title shot.
Yeah.
Simple. The trios one is more complicated because there are no trios belts.
Yeah.
So if they're going to say each person gets to call their shot, I think this is the best way of calling their shots.
Nice. I like that. And I would go with that as well. Exactly how you've outlined it there. I think is a fun way of doing it. You've sold me on it with like you said, the vlog, and that'd be really great because it's a way of getting people in to watch it who maybe just follow on social media. You can do play it up to the people in the crowd and in attendance as well. Because we've spoken about that before, how we think that's something that RevPro could get better at, would be some of the production. You don't need to go full into it, but just a bit more in that would be good. I like that a lot. No notes from me. I think that's a lovely way to do it. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show, Dave, that Andy Quilden has come out via RevPro Q&A and said that 2025 is going to have more shows in it than 2024. I think he's already said that Coventry next year is going to have 5 shows. So that has just shown how we're going to expand. He's also mentioned things like Doncaster is back on the docket for next year. From what I've seen, the first half of the year rather than the second half. I've said to you that my thoughts on that is that Revolution Rumble is in Doncaster. Although when I was looking at dates, and I was saying to you beforehand, I think that when I reckon it could end up being, I think I've got something that night in London. Bloody typical. However, do you think now, and some of it's been discussed a lot actually, but do you think with more dates being promised that RevPro could do some kind of G1 round robin style tournament, or do you still think that there's no way of doing it at the independent level?
I think it's possible, as in it is doable for an independent company. I just think it's really high risk because the beauty of the G1 in Japan is that they condense it into like a 2 or 3 week period. An independent company in Britain can't do that. So if you take it from for me, the classic and the perfect G1 format is 2 blocks of 10. 2 blocks of 10, which is 18 matches, 9 matches on the A block. Is what you'd realistically need is 18 shows.
Yeah.
Because you'd need 9. I mean, unless you're going to do 10 match cards. I don't see 10 match cards looking.
No.
So you've either got to do 18 shows for 2 blocks, or you've got to make the block smaller. So if you go down to the Continental Classic, AEW's version of the G1, personally, I don't get the excitement for it like other people do. Because one of the reasons for it is there's only 6 people in each block. You're only talking about 5 matches. It's not big enough for me. It's like a half-hearted G1. It's like a little tip of the cap to the G1 rather than it being a true G1.
Yeah.
It's Nickelback instead of Nirvana. And that's just to make up for the fact that I sleep a few weeks ago. So if, let's say you did it, six wrestlers in an A block, 6 wrestlers in a B block, you still need 10 shows for those matches to happen. 5 matches. No, because you could put them all on one show, couldn't you? You could put them all on one show. You could have 6 matches per show, but you need 5 consecutive shows fully dedicated to this tournament. Now that means that your fans have got to be completely sold into it. Because if you buy a ticket to a show and it's a bit like going to a 5-day test match in the cricket. Only it's not cricket fans that are going to it. It's sports fans. So you're a sports fan rather than a cricket fan, and you turn up to the 3rd day of the test. It's a bit awkward. And I feel like with RevPro, you've got a lot of unique crowds around the country. But I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure what percentage of the Sheffield fans watch everything on demand. What percentage of the Southampton fans watch everything on demand? The 229, the Stevenage crowd, the Coventry crowd. How many people are like diehard and watch it every week? And how many people keep up to date with what's going on through socials and then go to their local show each time? Because if you watch, it's a bit like, imagine who watches Dynamite once a month. Like literally, you only watch it once a month. You don't watch the other weeks. You just watch it once a month. No one does that. Like, that would be really weird. But this is a bit like that equivalence. If you're not watching every show and you're only watching your local shows and keeping up with results, it means that a tournament loses a lot of its power and its uniqueness, because a lot of it comes down to like those deft little nuanced bits of booking between matches, between shows, telling these little intricate storylines throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
If people aren't watching all of the shows, they're just getting a random set of matches that, even though would all be bangers, it'd be a great card, it'd be a great show, it might not work for the random family that have turned up to watch a wrestling show if they don't really understand what's going on, unless they really, really sold it. And, you know, like on the big screen, you've got the league tape and you've got all the points and you've got all the fixtures, you've got all these graphics, and it could work. I'm just not sure if it's a viable option in terms of if RevPro think it's a viable option.
Yeah.
Secondly, you got to book all those wrestlers well in advance, because if you're going to go up and say, I know, like, I don't know how it works. I get the feeling that there is a core of RevPro wrestlers who are booked for every RevPro show throughout the year.
Yeah.
And Andy just gives them the dates at the start of the year, and they've got a pay agreement for the year, whether it's a salary, whether it is a show by show. This is what you're going to get guaranteed show by show. But Robbie X is always on the show. So is Michael Oakley. So is Luke Jacobs. So is Connor Mills. So is RKJ. So is JJ Gale. You obviously get the odd one where they're not, but it is very infrequent. And even then, it seems to be like you can imagine that being can I do this show on this day instead, and I'll make it up by doing something else, you know, or, you know, they work it out between them that way. So obviously, like those guys, it works. Everybody else, you've got to book them up well in advance, and then you've got the risk of injury. All it takes is one of those wrestlers to take a bad bump, broken nose. I'm not being funny. How many broken noses have we seen recently? Like, it seems to be the thing at the moment. And suddenly your whole tournament's thrown off because the person that you wanted to book things around has got injured.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really derailed the British Tag League last year. Tag League last year was nowhere near as good as the year before. And part of that is because Joe Lando got injured.
Yeah.
I hate that phrase, actually. Joe Lando got injured. It sounds like he did it on purpose. Joe Lando was injured. You know, he got an injury. And then Zach Knight went off to America. Just messed it all up. Took away the special element of there being these established teams in the tournament.
Absolutely.
I love the G1 more than anything. It is literally my favourite thing about wrestling outside of RevPro. I still don't think that it's viable for RevPro.
Yeah. Fair enough. I won't lie, I kind of thought the same thing. I was thinking about the difficulties in schedules was where my mind was going. And like you said, if someone gets injured, you kind of have to think that to do that RevPro would basically have to almost like to contract people for a period of time where they don't wrestle anywhere at the time, and even then, all it takes is one injury in a match, and it's all thrown out. So, yeah, sadly, I don't see that happening either. We're on to the final question now, and this is quite an interesting one, I think. Andy Quilden comes to you and says, Dave, you have the power to induct 3 people into the RevPro Hall of Fame.
Oh.
Who do you put in there? And you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna preface this and say that we auto induct those who aren't here with us anymore. Because
my first thought went to Mad Kurt, James Castle.
Yeah.
Ryan Smile.
Yeah.
I think somebody who's been around longer than me might be able to correct me. I think that Ryan Smile has been inducted into RevPro.
I was going to say I believe that was the first person inducted.
Yeah, I remember watching it on when I did the whole kind of completionist history of RevPro on demand. And obviously, like they're a given. They have to go in there. But if we're talking about like actual like wrestlers on just on their careers, as opposed, we're just looking at the positive stories, not the sad stories.
Absolutely.
Have we got any brawls here? Are we talking about wrestlers that have now retired, or they have to have retired?
My only thing was wrestlers that have been in RevPro. So I mean, like, I would include like people like Andy Quilden, who obviously that is a name that will go in. Purely wrestlers who have been in RevPro. Doesn't have to be anyone that is retired. They can still be wrestling today, as long as they've got that impact and link to RevPro.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm thinking of like the pillars of that RevPro was built on, you're talking Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr. Obviously, you're talking about Martinsville, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're talking about like that kind of AJ Styles, Tanahashi, Ishii, Suzuki, like that lineage of the British heavyweight title. Because I don't think RevPro is the company it is today without that New Japan link. And when that New Japan link came, it really helped elevate RevPro to a standard different and above, like, from an optics perspective, of any other company in British wrestling. And obviously, I'm talking about that retrospectively because I wasn't aware of it at the time. But looking back, that's how I can see the history shape around it.
Yeah. And what I'll say is I've done. So
Zack Sabre Jr. are 2.
Okay, because what I've done is I've got a post-it note here. Before I ask you the question, I've written down 3 very quick fire names. So I'm just interested to see where your third goes there.
I've got my third, and it's not someone I've mentioned so far.
Interesting. Okay.
Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., Giselle Shaw.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I can see why.
Like Giselle Shaw was the undisputed British Women's Champion.
Yeah.
Like for such a, and it kind of feels. I feel like if you're going to induct somebody into a Hall of Fame, they need to have left.
Mm-hmm.
And although Zack Sabre Jr. comes back often, he left. He went to Japan. Will Ospreay went to Japan. Giselle Shaw went home. She went back to North America. So I feel like, whilst we could talk about people like Sha Samuels, who absolutely has to be in the RevPro Hall of Fame, it feels like that would be when Shah hangs up his boots.
Yeah.
As opposed to it being right now. And absolutely Tanahashi, Shibata, Suzuki, Ishii, all of them have to be in there as well. But if we were going to do like the top three for me, it would be those three. And if we were going to do it like like how WWE Hall of Fame works, where it's like they have the
the class of 2024.
Yeah, and so you have like your main attraction, and then you have people around them. Well, I think it would need to be that it's like Zack Sabre Jr. goes in 1 year, Ospreay another year, Giselle Shaw another year. I wouldn't put all three of them together. And it could be that you have, Zack goes into the Hall of Fame with somebody and somebody else, and you have got like these different levels of it, because that's where you can, tip your cap to people that were integral to RevPro in the early years, but aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
Sort of like people like MK McKinnon. Like MK McKinnon is someone where it's like is not a part of the scene anymore. But some of those early RevPro shows, like the matches he had with Zack Sabre Jr., they're like some of the best watches on RevPro on demand. So someone like that would be like cool to see. I feel like I don't know what their plans are for the Fame. But they're the three, Giselle, Zack, and Will are the three for me, where it's like they're like three pillars of RevPro. And then in terms of everything else, I'd like to see where they go with that.
Yeah, nice. I was just looking up as well about Giselle. Obviously, she kind of was at the tail. So when I was starting to get into RevPro a bit more, that was the kind of tail end of her time there. What I found really interesting is looking at it is that I've seen 2 of her 3 last matches in RevPro, and one of those matches was in 2020. Well, 2 of those matches were in 2021. So obviously I saw at the 12th anniversary show, but still to this day, the first introduction I've had, I knew of Giselle, I knew of Alex Windsor, but the match they had at the 1865 live in Southampton 14, which was also the same night that we got bloody Oku Ospreay 1, and Mark Davis versus Luke Jacobs, Carl Fletcher and Ethan Allen. Such a bloody good show in hindsight, that one. But also, this is just really random one. Every time I see Carl Fletcher on AEW television, I always think he was never that tall when I saw him at RevPro. He was never that tall. He's just grown, hasn't he? So interestingly, my 3 that I had was, I don't know if you can see it, I don't know if it was yet, Ospreay, Shah, and Gideon. Those are my 3 I put there.
Yeah, of course Gideon's got to be in there. Absolutely, he has to be in there.
Yeah.
Slightly ashamed that I didn't say his name earlier. Mate, if you just noticed the fact that I was adjusting my camera and giving a bit of a wiggle there, that's because Andy Coulden just dropped 2 matches for the 229 on Sunday.
Oh, has he indeed? Oh, go for it, my friend. Go for it.
So we've got Anita Vaughan versus Millie McKenzie.
Yeah.
We've got Leon Cage versus Michael Oku.
Okay.
We now have JJ Gal versus Charlie Serlim.
Interesting.
So interesting to see, is this the payoff? Or is this going to be another, it doesn't really work out and build to Uprising?
Yeah.
And mate, how about this? Connor Mills and Jay Joshua versus Zazaya and Leon Slater.
Oh.
They can't work together, can they?
Oh, mate.
Mate, I love that. Didn't I say? I said it, right? I wanted Mills and Jay Joshua to pick up some tag wins. Yeah. And Zazaya and Leon, that's going to combust, isn't it? It's going to absolutely
Absolutely.
combust.
And that is a
I'm
match. Yeah.
curious to see the Sterling and JJ Gang match. I'm curious to see how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was this time 2 years ago that they did a series of matches between Greedy Souls and Sunshine Machine that were a little bit of a parody of like an old
Yeah.
wrestling trope. One match is thrown out because it's count out, one's a
Mm-hmm.
disqualification. Oh
Yeah.
look, let's do no count outs, no disqualifications.
Yeah.
And then they did it again with Sky Smithson and Danny Luna. So it's a bit of like, so it's an old wrestling booking tactic, isn't
Of
it?
course, yeah.
And it can
Absolutely.
work really well, and it can feel a bit kind of predictable. I'm curious to see how they do this without it feeling predictable, because actually, JJ beat Charlie, right? He beat him clean in Southampton.
Yeah.
So they didn't do it there. But Charlie got his licks in afterwards, and Charlie turned up at Global Wars. So I'm interested to see what happens here.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great start for that to build up into like that kind of big payoff match, like you said. That tag match. Oh, if it wasn't mine and the wife's anniversary at the weekend, mate, I think I'd be tempted. That match alone would tempt me to the
Yeah, that sounds
229
fun.
for that one. But yeah, and you know, I don't. I think I've rookie error here. I think I've booked dinner for the time of the show as well.
Mate,
Probably the first RevPro show of the year. I think that I'm not going to be watching live. Oh,
mate. So
well,
you're
hopefully,
miffed about that.
yeah.
Spike is absolutely fuming that Leon Cage has been booked against Michael Oku in London
he
and
is.
not in Southampton.
Oh my god, I bet he is.
He was not happy about that when I spoke to him this week.
Oh god.
And mate, like, my trip to the 229 is going to be my last trip to the 229 where I don't know where I'm going to be sitting. Because every 229 show next year, I've got my guaranteed spot.
Matt, I love that.
Thank you, Revolution Pro Wrestling, for introducing allocated season tickets.
Please don't do it for Southampton going
What were your
forward, though.
thoughts on that?
You know what? Right, like I said to you, like for me, just from not wanting to have to buy a season ticket again, I say not wanting to, just because I've got loads of things I want to do next year. The flexibility, being able to buy my ticket and just kind of turn up on the day for Southampton is preferable for me. But I'm not gonna lie, if they introduce that for Southampton, I would go. I'm buying my season ticket and I'm picking my exact seat, because I know that when I turn up at Southampton, there is one particular seat I always love sitting in, and they've disappeared completely. So I'm just going to tell you guys about this. I love this one seat that I have in Southampton on the stage, and I love it every time because I get a really good view of the ring. Lighting's really nice. So yeah, that's what I'm used to. But the thing I love most about it is I don't have to worry about wrestlers coming diving out of the ring. Dave, don't you worry. I'm talking to the people here, so that's fine, my friend. Well, I don't know if you're not shown on my screen, but I'm going to bring you into the conversation now. This is going to look really good when we put it on. However, I've just been chatting to people, telling them why I like my favourite seat in Southampton up on the stage, and I said I love it because it's good for you. I get nice lights. I can take some pictures if I want to, and I don't have to worry about JJ Gale and Leon Slater and everyone, Robbie X, all doing that dive outside. I have to go move out the way here. Although I did have that once when Mark True and Michael Oku decided they were coming up on the stage to the second row and doing stuff there. But no,
That was my first Southampton show, that was.
Ah, right, okay. So yeah, I think if it was available in Southampton, I'd be straight on it and go, I'm getting my seat. We've spoken about this, right? We sometimes in the nicer weather in the year, we do some hangouts before because it was nice weather, nice to see people and whatnot. As it started to get cold and miserable, one of the things I love about the Portsmouth shows, and important to note as well, we've speculated much, but Andy Quill has basically confirmed it that Portsmouth isn't coming back. Which, when we saw the Grand Slam wrestling show get announced for February, 2 and 2 together on that one, But one of the things I loved about those shows was allocated seating. So I pick my seat. I know where I'm going to be sitting. Job done. I can turn up 5 minutes before. I didn't. I turned up right when doors are open. That's just me. That's who I am. But what I hated about Southampton sometimes is that if you wanted a good seat, hour in the queue minimum. And before I would get involved in all the chat beforehand, that was just me with my thoughts for an hour and bored. Like, I can't be dealing with that. So, and look, I'm just going to say it for what it is. Having seen some of the fucking shit show that happened at the 1 or 2 229 shows that I went to, where one person has suddenly got 20 coats and bags and everything, and the whole seat's gone out despite being fifth in the queue. Yeah, fuck that shit. Like, now you get your own seat and no one's going to be sitting there. I'm interested in seeing how they do it, though, because when I went to, it was a really weird situation, right? When I went to Pro Wrestling Chaos, I booked a front row seat, thinking, oh, I'll be able to, it's not allocated seat, so I'll just go and pick my seat. And then I got there and found out your name was post-it note stickered onto the seat, which I was like, my seat's really good. I like this, but what if I got one over there that I did, or down here that I didn't like so much? Or what if there was someone you knew and you didn't want to be sat next to them? Luckily not for me. I had the lovely Sharon next to me, and that was a brilliant. That was the first I ever actually met Sharon in person as well. So yeah, that was lovely. But yeah, like there's kind of all this. Are they going to put names on the seats? What happens if someone is sat in your seat and you have to go? Sorry, mate, you're in my seat.
So your ticket has the seat number.
Right, I get you.
All I need to do is just number the seats.
Got you.
So yeah, I know exactly where I'm sat. It's going to really like shape the status quo of the 229 at least, because pretty much the front row is the same people every show, and pretty much everyone knows where everyone sits.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's complex is the hard camera side, the side that the hard camera is looking at. So if you're watching it on demand, everyone who's sitting in the front row you can see. That's like dominated by like a large group of people, but they're not the same people every month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's a bit interchangeable. But generally, everywhere else is your regulars who like to have their spot, and obviously that's kind of all been thrown out the window because some of those people haven't bought a season ticket. Not everybody can afford a 300 quid season ticket at Christmas, and if you're going with your partner or you're going with your kids, that might not be 300 quid, that might be 600 quid or 900 quid, 1,200 quid. And then also you've got the fact that literally they went on sale and people just picked their best seat. I was doing a maths intervention with some kids, doing their homework with them, and it popped up, and I was just like, "Guys, come back in 1 second. I'm just gonna stand outside." I literally just stood outside, got my phone up, picked my seat, and was like, "Fuck it, I'm sitting there." Didn't give it a second thought. I just chose the best seat I could get. So yeah, I want to try and on Sunday sit as close to my new seat as possible.
Yeah, I just having
to be like, this is where I will be sat.
I'm having a look now at the what I think it's. So you've got. I'm looking at it as if this is how it's on TV, because you've got like two rows. Yeah, so these two front rows look to be where you've got if you're looking on the left hand side where the wrestlers come down, you've got the two rows there. That's practically sold out. That whole front row there. There's one seat remaining.
You've got a gap in between those seats, haven't you? Which is where the hard camera physically stands.
Of course, yeah. So that's that row there. Then the row on the right of that, which is the row I imagine you're at, because I remember you like saying when you were sat somewhere along the middle there, it was quite nice because you can hear a bit of the commentary going on. So I imagine you're down there somewhere.
I'm not, only because I quite like the uninterrupted view without the cameraman.
Ah, interesting.
So I'm sitting next to the whole camera.
Ah, you're there. Ah, interesting. Yeah. To be fair, because when I was there last time, I quite liked that sitting down that area as well, because that was. I think I can't remember if I've done the 229 once or twice. I think I've only done it once actually. But I remember sitting down there and I really enjoyed that area. But looking at it, then you've got 5. So you got 3 tickets, 3 front row seats on the right hand side taken.
Yep.
And then on the row ahead, you got 5. So 5
Yep.
on the hard camera side, and on the other side, none whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those seats available.
What makes me chuckle is I think I can pretty much tell you who's in every seat. There's a couple that I don't know, but just from talking to people and you're like, oh, did you get one? They're like, yeah, I'm sat here, and you're like, oh, okay, that's your dot, is it? I'm this dot, and they're like, oh, so and so's this dot, and you're like, oh, well, I know so and so's this dot. So it's nice in that sense.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like they'll still sell loads of tickets, because even if those ones don't sell as season tickets, you'll still be able to buy a front row ticket on the day.
Yeah.
But for me, this is a game changer because I can turn up at 3:30 and go in. And I like wrestling. I like interacting with people at the wrestling. I like being social at wrestling. But I don't have the biggest social battery. So for me, if I queue for an hour and then I go in for an hour and I'm chatting for 2 hours with people, I start to get a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like it can get a bit much. And sometimes you can end up talking so much about the wrestling. By the time the wrestling comes on, you're like, it's not like you're drained or anything. It's just, sometimes it's nice to just not have to do it quite as much.
I get that completely.
Like doing like an hour and a half drive to the 229, knowing I'm leaving my kids and my wife at home. This for me, this gives me Sunday afternoon back.
Yeah.
Because I won't need to leave until like maybe 2:00 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I could leave and then I'll get there comfortably between when doors open and when the first bell is.
Yeah.
Whereas before I used to leave at like, sometimes I'd leave at 11 in the morning, 11:30, midday. And then it's just like, bye kids, I'm off to wrestling. Have a nice day with mummy. Like this actually, this gives me a bit more quality time with the kids.
Yeah.
And it might help me bring the kids. I haven't quite worked out what that would look like. But if I wanted to bring one of my kids where I've got my season ticket, but I don't know if I would give up my season ticket to that show and let somebody else sit in my seat and I'll just sit somewhere else with the kid. Or if I would try and get there early enough and be like, well, I'm going to sit in my season ticket or I'm going to let them sit in my season ticket and I'll sit in the seat directly behind them.
Yeah.
Because like, that's not when people go in first, no one's going to a random second row seat, are they?
No, of course they're not. Yeah.
Then they're getting the best seats that are near the bar and facing the hard camera. So things like that can work. But I just feel like what I like is there was a little bit of grumbling earlier this year. And I was one of the people grumbling, a little bit of grumbling about the fact that the queuing had got a little bit out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up in a Q&A of being like, is there something you can do to address this? And they kind of have, right?
Yeah, they absolutely have.
It feels like a response. Someone said, could we not do allocated seats? So they've offered allocated season tickets.
Yeah, feedback has been taken on board for it. Yeah, absolutely. So, mate. And look, for you, for all those reasons that you said there, and for you that has to travel to these, I'm with you completely, right? That I love going and chatting to people beforehand. Sometimes chatting about the wrestling is great fun, right? But look, we know it's like at Southampton, like when we get Tom come out to us. I love Tom, but Tom will come and go. He'll be the sort of person who'll go, tell me your top 3 Ultimate Dragon matches between 1995 and 1996 in Germany only. Right, that's the level of specificity that you get from, and there's a lot of people in the community that just want to talk wrestling because for them that is their opportunity, right? They maybe they don't get as invested as wide in the scene as we do. Like those couple, they love it, but they're there for those couple of months, a year, and then go, right, this is my opportunity to speak to these people. I'm not gonna text and not gonna drop in their DMs and all of that sort of stuff. So I kind of get why they do, but sometimes when I go to wrestling, I don't really want to chat about wrestling beforehand. I just want to talk to people. And like
Yeah.
you said, you chat about wrestling beforehand. You chat about wrestling when you're in there. You're chatting to the wrestlers. You're watching. Like it can get a bit much sometimes. So no, I'm with you. It'll be great for you that you don't have to do any of that anymore. You can just rock up, get yourself sorted.
I got my 229 season ticket. I've got a standing ticket for the 1865, which I really like because that's just a little bit of money saved. I think they're about 30 quid cheaper if you stand rather than if you sit. I'm going to get a Sheffield season ticket as well when they go on sale. And then you're like, boom, that'll be like 23 RevPro shows booked for next year already. Before we even think about York, Copper, Stevenage, Coventry, Doncaster. I love it. My hope is that I'll get even more shows next year than this year, and I've done over 40 this year. I will have done by the end of the year.
Cracking stuff, mate. Cracking stuff. There is a reason you are Dave the Mark. But on that note, my friend, it's been so much fun just
loved it, mate.
Going a little bit off script tonight and just doing something a bit different. So thank you for dealing with so many on the spot questions and just the interesting thoughts you put out there, my friend.
Loved it, mate. All good fun. See you next week.
See you next week.